Hi, I'm Gravy,
And I'm Noah from the Paranormal Investigators of Milwaukee.
and this is Paranormal Review. Today we're talking about Edinburgh Manor, which is a 12,000 square foot facility located about 35 miles southwest of Dubuque, Iowa.
The building began its life as the Jones County Poor Farm, with land being deeded to it in 1846. In the late 1800s, poor farms were government-run projects used to house the destitute in return for their labor, often consisting of maintenance to the facility or literally farming food.
The Jones County Poor Farm was run in this manner until 1910, when the building was demolished due to its conditions and overcrowding. And the structure we know as Edinburgh Manor was erected on the same spot, being completed in 1911.
The beginnings of Edinburgh Manor are relatively inconspicuous, being run much in the same way as the poor farm that preceded it, helping the poor find a home and potentially get back on their feet.
However, Edinburgh Manor was also a convenient place for society to hide people it deemed to be less desirable, often including the mentally ill and handicapped, housing not just individuals, but sometimes entire families.
In fact, one of the most famous purported hauntings in the building is that of a little girl who was simply left on the doorstep.
Through the years, it would seem that the treatment of the tenants at Edinburgh Manor took a turn for the worst.
This included the construction of a padded cell in the basement, which functioned as solitary confinement for unruly and sometimes violent tenants.
It is reported that at one time, cages were installed in the attic for overflow from the basement's padded cell, with the intention being to hold a resident for a couple of hours, but sometimes holding for multiple days.
There are numerous recorded deaths and burials on the property, the final of which occurred in 1925. However, these are not associated with the small cemetery across the road from the building, which is more likely the original settlers of the city of Edinburgh, based on their dated headstones. Instead, these bodies are likely in a potter's field, an unmarked cemetery for unclaimed remains, on the grounds of Edinburgh Manor itself.
The reliance on poor farms to aid the needy declined after the Social Security Act became law in 1935, and most poor farms were no longer in service by the 1950s.
At this time, Edinburgh Manor converted to being a privately run, dedicated mental health facility and senior care center. This lasted until 2010, when Edinburgh was shut down following concerns raised around the unsafe conditions provided for residents, as well as numerous allegations of abuse by staff.
Acquired by the current owners in 2011, they worked on the condition of the building, ultimately opening it for daily tours and overnight paranormal investigations.
Pim was interested in investigating Edinburgh Manor after seeing it on a couple different paranormal shows, seeing the bevy of supposed evidence gathered, and personal experiences in the building.
We're always aiming to test and verify claims that are presented in an attempt to see if any of the experiences could be reasonably explained or replicated, and if not, to try to document any activity that might occur during our investigation. The claims of paranormal activity are really what draw teams to want to spend the night in haunted locations, and Edinburgh Manor has managed to gain notoriety for its activity throughout the years.
Shortly after the current owner purchased the building, they stayed on premises while performing maintenance. In this time, they had a number of strange occurrences, including a particular night which they spent in room 207, where their sleep was continually interrupted by something grabbing at their feet.
There is also supposedly the spirit of a man roaming the halls of the first floor of the building after hanging himself using a bedsheet tied to a room's doorknob in what was then a janitorial closet.
In this same area, there is a spirit affectionately referred to as Susie, who seems to stay near the children's room and hall. Also on the first floor is room 105, in which supposedly a particularly violent sexual assault occurred during the building's operation. Often women report being touched in this room, as well as feeling immensely uncomfortable. This was actually experienced by one of our investigators who was in the room setting up equipment during one of our investigations.
There are a number of different claims of people seeing a tall man in a duster jacket with a hat in the basement office area. A point of interest in this claim is that it is said to occur mostly during the daytime.
Another supposed entity who dwells in the basement is the Joker, who was purported to be an inmate who took his own life while being confined in the basement's padded cell. The moniker of the Joker was given to this spirit as it seems to enjoy causing mischief throughout the basement, although some people feel there is something more sinister about this entity.
Likely, the most famous single piece of evidence to come out of this location was a moment on the TV show Ghost Adventures, wherein an investigator was in the basement laundry room and, though it wasn't caught on camera, claimed that a piece of dinnerware in the room had been thrown at him. This is attributed to the Joker.
One of our own investigators had a personal experience in the basement. When walking through the hallway connecting the laundry room and cafeteria, she felt her arm being grabbed as if to stop her. Assuming this was the other investigator in the basement at the time, she turned to see why they'd grabbed her, only to find that the other investigator was in an entirely different room.
Knowing the condition of the building you're going to investigate can really be a huge help, as simple things like electricity and plumbing aren't something you can take for granted in many locations.
For example, Edinburgh Manor has no functioning bathrooms in the building. However, there is a bunkhouse included in the cost of your rental that does have working facilities.
For the most part, windows are intact and keep both bugs and wildlife out of the building.
Edinburgh is one of the most remote locations we have investigated. The manor is on a hill surrounded by cornfields. There is some slight traffic noise from the road located next to the manor, but overall it is minimal. Headlights from the road are not a major problem, which can sometimes be the source for reported shadow figures from less experienced investigators.
There are cows in a neighboring field that can be heard from inside the building. In fact, when we were there, we thought we were hearing someone's phone ring when actually it turned out to be those cows. There are also bugs throughout the building that we spend a lot of time eradicating during our setup.
Falling paint chips are an ongoing issue, often falling randomly throughout the investigation. This is due to the lack of climate control in the building, causing the humidity changes to have the paint peel off the walls, and most importantly, the ceiling, which can then fall at random times. So let's talk about some of the accommodations at Edinburgh Manor.
Yes, the manor is not climate controlled, but there is electricity throughout the building. There is no running water in the manor, but there is a bunkhouse that you will have access to when renting Edinburgh for an investigation. The bunkhouse is climate controlled, and it has a full kitchen as well as multiple rooms you can sleep in if you don't want to sleep in the manor.
In order to book an investigation, you need to email Cindy to find out if the date you're interested in is available. The email address can be located on the Edinburgh Manor website or Facebook page. The cost is a minimum of $225 for up to 5 people, with a cost of $45 per person after that. For that price, you get access to Edinburgh for 16 hours from 6 p.m. until 10 a.m. the next day. Edinburgh also offers daytime tours by appointment.
How many times have we investigated Edinburgh Manor by now?
Quite a few, and most were 2-night investigation. We're also going back again this year as well.
In fact, this is one of our favorite locations to investigate and try to book a 2-night investigation at least once a year. The combination of a low cost and a geographic location make Edinburgh an ideal location for us to investigate.
That's all for our paranormal review on Edinburgh Manor. We hope you found this helpful and informative. If you did, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to the channel to help us produce more content like this.
And while you're at it, click that bell to be notified when new content is released. I'm Gravy.
And I'm Noah from the Paranormal Investigators of Milwaukee.
And this has been the Paranormal Review.
Work it, girl. It looks great. All right.
And then this one time we had this other investigator there, and we took the toilet paper out of the bathroom, and we hid the other rolls in the shower. And so when he was in there finishing his duties, yes, we started sliding him roll of the paper
Underneath the door.
under the door.
One square at a time.
I'll never forgive you.